Well, right now, each European nation is playing to their own national egos. France is, you know, putting emphasis on the, long relationship that dates back to Lafayette and the assistance France provided in the Revolution. And yes, we appreciate that. Anybody who has studied American history knows the importance of the French role in the American Revolution. We repaid that in 1917. Lafayette, we are here. General Jack Pershing said, as we put over 1 million Americans across the sea to save France from Germany. And we did save France. We saved the Western world from Germany. And we did it again in the 1940s, saving France, saving Europe from Germany. So the idea that France holds something over us is ludicrous. We've saved France twice in the last century, and we're going to save them again by avoiding a third world war with Russia. But Macron believes that he can come in. He had past meetings with Donald Trump in the first term where Trump went to France and they famously got along. It was sort of a bromance, and he's hoping to play on that. But Donald Trump's not playing that game anymore. Donald Trump was polite, but the idea that France has a special relationship with the United States capable of putting pressure on Donald Trump to walk away from or modify the strategic agreement that he's getting ready to undertake with Russia is absurd. Let's just take a look at, for instance, and this is what everybody needs to focus on going out. See, Macron and Starmer and everybody, they're coming in and they're dealing with the United States as if security is now defined in militaristic terms, the way it was in the past. How much percentage GDP you can put into your defense, what role you play in NATO, etc. Trump's off that game. Trump doesn't play that game.
What you just heard is nothing short of a geopolitical earthquake, a stark warning that Europe is no longer the power player it once believed itself to be. The balance of global influence is shifting, and according to Ritter, Washington holds all the cards, ready to cut off allies who dare to defy its agenda. France, Germany, the UK. In his view, they are relics of the past, clinging to illusions of relevance while the real deal is being struck between the United States and Russia. Europe's leaders may think they can shape the future, but in the eyes of the US, they are nothing more than background noise. The era of American patience is over. The message is clear: fall in line or be left behind. The situation in Ukraine has taken a devastating turn. After analyzing the controversial statements made by Scott Ritter, we now shift our focus to the battlefield, where the past 12 hours have seen an intense escalation. Russia has launched a large-scale missile barrage across Ukraine, crippling key infrastructure and delivering a heavy blow to Ukrainian defensive positions. But the most shocking development is unfolding in Chasiv Yar, where the defense of this crucial stronghold has effectively collapsed. The battlefield is shifting rapidly, and the consequences of these latest Russian advances could be catastrophic. In a night of devastation, Russian forces unleashed one of their most aggressive missile strikes to date, hitting multiple regions across Ukraine. The scale of destruction is staggering. Russian missiles and drones targeted not just Ukrainian military positions, but also key energy and gas infrastructure, aiming to cripple Ukraine's ability to sustain its war effort. Reports indicate that Russian forces struck Ukrainian troop concentrations, temporary deployment sites, and crucial headquarters, dealing a significant blow to Ukraine's operational capabilities. One of the primary objectives of Russia's missile assault was Ukraine's energy grid. In western Ukraine, Russian missiles pounded critical gas storage facilities in the Ternopil and Ivano-Frankivsk regions. These are not just strategic for Ukraine, but also vital for European energy security, as European nations rely on these facilities for gas supplies. This attack is a direct message to both Kyiv and its Western allies. Russia is willing to use energy as a weapon, and it is now actively attempting to undermine Europe's ability to support Ukraine. Further south, the Odesa region came under relentless assault from Russian drones. The objective was clear: dismantle as many energy infrastructure targets as possible, plunging Ukraine deeper into an energy crisis. The destruction of these facilities will make it even harder for Ukraine to sustain operations on the front lines, impacting both civilian populations and military logistics. The eastern part of Ukraine saw some of the heaviest attacks, with the Sumy region being a major target. Reports confirm that a massive ballistic missile strike hit Sumy Oblast, where Russian forces sought to destroy Ukrainian troop deployment sites and command centers. This was not just an isolated attack. This was part of a larger strategy to weaken Ukrainian resistance ahead of a new Russian offensive. Russian forces followed up their missile strikes with precision drone attacks. Footage from the battlefield shows how Russian FPV drones decimated Ukrainian supply vehicles attempting to move from the city of Sudzha toward Sumy. These relentless drone strikes have effectively cut off critical Ukrainian supply lines, leaving defenders in Sumy increasingly vulnerable. Ukrainian forces are now struggling to maintain logistics in the area, with pro-Ukrainian sources admitting that the situation is deteriorating rapidly. But perhaps the most alarming development is happening in Chasiv Yar. The city, a key Ukrainian defensive stronghold in Donetsk Oblast, is on the verge of falling. Over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have made stunning advances, breaking through the Ukrainian defensive belt and crossing the railways into the city's southwestern sector. This marks a crucial breakthrough, as Ukrainian troops in the central part of the city are now effectively encircled. Footage from the battlefield reveals the sheer scale of the Russian offensive. Over a dozen armored vehicles, tanks, and infantry fighting vehicles participated in a coordinated assault, overwhelming Ukrainian defenders. Unlike previous engagements where Ukrainian forces managed to hold their ground, this time the resistance appears to be crumbling. Reports suggest that Ukrainian forces may have been caught off guard due to a lack of intelligence support, possibly stemming from reduced real-time surveillance from Western allies. The collapse of Ukrainian defenses in Chasiv Yar has triggered a domino effect. With Russian forces securing key logistical routes, Ukrainian reinforcements are struggling to reach the battlefield. The once formidable defensive lines have been obliterated under relentless Russian bombardment, with FAB 3000 and FAB 1500 aerial bombs reducing Ukrainian positions to ruins before ground troops moved in for the final push. The significance of Chasiv Yar cannot be overstated. This city is one of the last major defensive barriers before Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, two of Ukraine's most critical strongholds in Donetsk. If Chasiv Yar falls completely, it could set the stage for a much larger Russian advance deeper into Ukrainian-held territory. Reports indicate that Russian forces are now methodically tightening their grip on the city. Footage has emerged showing Russian soldiers raising their flag over northern Chasiv Yar, a symbolic move that signals their growing control over the battlefield. Pro-Ukrainian sources have begun acknowledging that their forces are in a dire situation, with limited escape routes and dwindling supplies. It is increasingly evident that Ukrainian forces are being forced into tactical withdrawals to avoid complete annihilation. However, these withdrawals come at a steep price. Ukrainian troops are leaving behind fortified positions, heavy weaponry, and critical supply depots. The Russians, having secured control over key supply roads, are now in a prime position to push further into Ukrainian-held areas. With Ukrainian forces on the back foot, the question now is, what comes next? Russia's success in Chasiv Yar could embolden them to launch further offensives along multiple fronts. The fighting in northern Donetsk and along the Siversky Donets River is intensifying, with Russian forces attempting to secure additional crossings and push deeper into Ukrainian defenses. Meanwhile, in the northern sector, Russian troops have reportedly improved their positions along the Asal River, advancing towards Kupiansk. These developments indicate that Russia is not only focused on Chasiv Yar, but is simultaneously pressuring Ukrainian forces across the entire eastern front. The situation is dire for Ukraine. The collapse of Chasiv Yar's defense represents a major setback, and with Russian forces pressing their advantage, Ukrainian defenders are facing one of their toughest battles yet. The loss of crucial supply lines, combined with devastating missile strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, is putting immense strain on Ukrainian military operations. Unless urgent reinforcements and supplies arrive, the collapse of Chasiv Yar could trigger a wider retreat, forcing Ukraine to abandon more territory in Donetsk. The coming days will be critical. Will Ukraine be able to stabilize the front and mount a counterattack, or will Russia's momentum continue unchecked? One thing is certain. The battlefield is changing rapidly, and the consequences of these latest Russian advances could reshape the course of the war. If you found this update insightful, make sure to like this video and subscribe to stay ahead of the latest developments on the battlefield. The situation is evolving rapidly, and we'll continue to bring you the most critical updates as they unfold. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you see this offensive playing out in the coming days? Will Ukraine be able to stabilize the front, or is this just the beginning of a larger collapse? Stay tuned, stay informed.